Hello and welcome back to this channel Comic Books. Today, we will be doing a recap of a Power Ranger universe visual novel called Mighty Morphin Power Ranger Necessary Evil Part 2. The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Part 2 Deluxe Edition Comics is an exciting new series of comics that follow the adventures of the Power Rangers and their allies. It features the return of classic characters like Lord Zed, Rita Repulsa, and the Putty Patrol. It also introduces new characters such as the mysterious villainous Lord Draken who possess both the powers of the Green and White Rangers. The story follows the Power Rangers as they battle their way through a series of epic battles and fight to protect the world from the forces of evil. With stunning artwork, intense action, and a compelling story, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Part 2 Deluxe Edition Comics is an exciting and thrilling new addition to the Power Rangers franchise. Without wasting any time, let's get this video started. The chapter begins with Rangers saying, "Space, time, and energy." After that we see Omega Rangers, who have just restored the grid. The Yellow Ranger says that the realities were shifting back and now they were going towards balance. Then the Blue Ranger says that Zordon Rangers have proven to be extraordinary. Upon hearing this, the Red Ranger tells the others that the grid was restored and now no mortal can threaten or harm it. After hearing this, the Blue Ranger says that the mortals were the ones who defeated the threat. On this, the Yellow Ranger says to the Blue Ranger that it was true that the mortals defeated the threat, but they were also responsible for the threat to begin with. The Red Ranger stops them and says whatever the case, it's time for them to depart. They must inspect all of the realities one by one. And this time, there can be no oversights. Then the Rangers travel through the rift where the Blue Ranger says that all of the paths must remain. The Yellow Ranger finishes his sentence by saying everything that could happen must happen. The Red Ranger, after listening to them, says no matter the joy or the pain, the victory or tragedy, all that which is supposed to happen, it will. As they travel through the rift, we see alternate versions of Rangers in different universes. Then the Blue Ranger goes to an era where Power Rangers were fighting against the King Mondo army. While fighting, the other Blue Ranger says to his teammate that she was doing a good job. That era, Green Ranger asks his fellow Ranger if King Mondo will ever run out of these things. That era, Red Ranger in excitement says that he hopes King Mondo doesn't run out of his minions. That era, Yellow Ranger tells them that a big enemy was approaching and soon a giant machine-like creature arrives there. The Blue Ranger from the future, who was observing all of this from afar, says that in one era these Rangers fight bravely, without knowing how close they are getting to becoming history. The Red Ranger from the future travels to a different era, and upon reaching there he says, in another time these Rangers are fighting for survival, not just their own, but for the survival of all of humanity, even those who think that they are not worthy of redemption. Soon, Dr. K of this era tells the Rangers of this era that the enemy was getting too close to her base. The Red Ranger of this era says Roger, and then he and his fellow Rangers activate their engine cell and use the Wheel Blaster to defeat their enemy by using their Megazord. The Yellow Ranger from the future travels to another era, where she says that all life was under their watch, all the stars, planets, and galaxies. The Rangers of this era were fighting against some evil Ranger, and the Black Ranger kicks the enemy while saying, "Take this, Psycho Ranger." Another enemy says that this time they won't be able to escape, and the Blue Ranger from this era punches that enemy and says, where has he heard this line before? The Pink Ranger and the Yellow Ranger from this era shoot the enemy with their blaster, and the Pink Ranger says to the Yellow Ranger that she thinks that they are winning. But soon a powerful enemy comes there and faces off against the Red Ranger of that era. The Red Ranger, while struggling, says to the enemy that they can't beat them. The enemy laughs and says that they don't want to beat them, they want to annihilate them. The Yellow Ranger from the future, who is observing all this, says, regardless of the situation, they must not interfere as it was not their place to do so. Then the Blue Ranger from the future travels to a different era, an era of Dino Charge Rangers. Upon reaching there, he says that they are not there to change the judgment, they are just custodians of possibilities. The Red Ranger of this era tells his teammates that they should quickly take down the enemy, and his teammate says that they are already on it. Then the Blue Ranger takes out his blaster and shoots the enemy. The Green Ranger also takes down the enemy easily, and in excitement, the Red Ranger says, "All right, triple strike," but the Pink Ranger tells them they have a bigger problem, not as Snide has also come there. Snide tells the Ranger to give him their energy, and after that, he will give them a quick and easy death. The future Blue Ranger sees this and says existence must always prevail, no matter what its form is. Meanwhile, the Red Ranger travels to another era, where the Rangers are fighting against an enemy in their Megazord. The future Red Ranger says that every universe is driven by chaos. The Rangers from this era, after taking down the enemy, and they were all celebrating inside the Megazord. In this era, Red Ranger says that there are so many mods, but there is not enough time to try them. The Pink Ranger says to the Red Ranger that he is getting used to all of this, to which the Blue Ranger says that Rancic is giving the Red Ranger a lot of practice. The future Red Ranger, seeing all of this, says some Rangers thrive on the chaos, while others risks their lives to control it. The Yellow Ranger from the future then travels to the era of Jungle Fury, where the Rangers of that era were facing off against their enemies. The Yellow Ranger and the Blue Ranger had the upper hand on their enemies, so while fighting them they tell them to go back to Avox. As they continue their fight, the Yellow Ranger from the future says, "The reality is always in transition. It is always creating new beginnings and new endings." Meanwhile, the Red Ranger goes to a dimension where he says, "There is always a place that exists outside of time. A place created from anger, resentment, and vanity. What began as a dream is now a person, and it must remain like this for all of eternity." Then the Red Ranger tells Tommy that there was no point in hiding. He knows that Tommy is in there. Then he says to Tommy, "Do you prefer to be called Lord Draken?" Soon Red Ranger sees something and is not able to believe his eyes. But soon he hears Tommy's voice, who says, "How can one be calm after seeing this, and yet see nothing?" As Red Ranger looks back, he sees Tommy, who says that finally, their fate is their own once again. Chapter 2. The Phantom Ranger goes to a planet because of a distress call. He tells his companion that they should inform the rest of the Power Rangers about this. While looking around, the Phantom Ranger realizes that someone was there, so he tells that person to show himself. The creature says to the Phantom Ranger that he apologizes for his appearance and says that he was always not like this. There was a time when he used to advise different rulers, but a sorcerer killed his king and transformed him into this form according to her liking. He says to the Phantom Ranger that he may have seen the condition of this world and the people. The Phantom Ranger tells the creature to take him to that sorcerer. Then the Phantom Rangers meets the sorcerer. The sorcerer says to Phantom Ranger that he finally came back. After all this time, the Phantom Ranger asks the sorcerer if she knew him. The sorcerer says that she understands that she looks quite different from a girl who was forsaken by him 10,000 years ago. Phantom Rangers remember who she is. It says, "Oh my God." The sorcerer says to the Phantom Ranger that she wants to say that she missed him, but her father used to say that if someone has anything wicked to say, it's better to not say it in the first place. The Phantom Ranger says that it's not her way, it's the way of Master Vile. The Phantom Ranger tells the sorcerer to release the people and leave this planet, otherwise she will be the one will be responsible for the consequence. Then the sorcerer says to the Ranger that all the consequences for her, and she attacks the Ranger, and while dodging the Ranger shouts her name, Rita, to which the sorcerer says, "Yes, Mr. Invincible." The Ranger says to her that what she has become, her mother didn't die for this, and that he doesn't want to fight her. The sorcerer blasts the Ranger to a wall, and when she was about to finish the fight, a creature comes and attacks her from behind, because of which she is unable to fight. Then the Ranger takes her to prison and locks her. Here they have a heartwarming talk, and Rita tells the Ranger how she conquers this land. And when the Ranger leaves, Rita decides to leave the planet as well. She says that she is not the best for this planet, and that she has now finally realized who she is without her master design. Meanwhile, on Earth, Zordon was being informed of the last attack on the planet known as Hartunia. Zordon asks if the Omega Rangers still haven't responded to their calls. The robot tells him that they have not, and just then they hear a voice that says, "Hello, old friend." As they look, they see the Phantom Ranger, who says to Zordon that he thinks that they have a lot of catching up to do. And that's all for today, guys. Stay tuned to get more new videos. Stay safe and keep watching.